Hello friends, Kisan is here again and welcome you in this video tutorial. In previous video tutorial we have learned how to save or persist the state of entity object into database, right? In Hibernate 5. Let me recap the things which we have learned in the previous video tutorial. So this is the example we had created in previous video tutorial. Here we have a configuration Hibernate cfg.xml file which basically contains all the information related to our database, like database driver name, URL, username, password, dialect class. Basically, why dialect class? Because Hibernate has capability to generate a SQL query on the fly, right? It's a ORM tool. You don't need to deal with the plain SQL query. So you specify all the information related to the database, means your entity class is tied up with which database table. If you look into our entity class, then here we have specified this entity class belongs to this table. I mean, these properties are primary key. What the column of what column name cross belongs to this property, and this properties are auto generated, right? All those information, all those metadata we have specified here. So that's the reason Hibernate already knows about the table name and primary key, and what are the column name for every properties in your entity class, right? So that's what we have to specify the dialect. If you are using some other database, then if you go to this package, then Hibernate has defined a lot of bunch of dialect classes, so you will have to select the appropriate dialect class and you need to specify over here, right? We have specified SBM2 DDL. Here we have given the create. So here let's create. Basically here, what are the expected value you can specify? You can specify create drop, you can specify update as well as create drop. There are, I think, create drop, update, and validate. These are the expected value you can define over here. So we will have a separate session on this. I mean, rest of the things we'll consider, will discuss in the separate video tutorial. But here, create, basically what happens when you run your client program, then Hibernate will check if this table already exists in the database, then that will gets dropped and that will recreate again. So if you have a previous data saved into your table, then that will be lost, right? So now next value we are going to use, that is called update. We don't want so update, what will happen? Update will check first if this table exists in the database, then this is not going to create. If this table does not exist in the database, then this will created by the Hibernate. But as you have given the update, so when I run our client program, if you specify the create, then DDL query you will be able to see on the console, right? Eclipse console. But if you specify update, then of course Hibernate will create a table for you, but that DDL query you cannot see on the console, but DML query you can see, right? DDL nothing but the like create table, alter table. These are the SQL query comes under the DDL. So whatever SQL query which is responsible to modify the database object, means database table, that is comes under the DDL, data definition language. And DML, like you have insert, update, delete, these are the queries called DML query. So DML query, of course you can see if you specify the update, but DDL query will not see on the console, but internally Hibernate triggers that DDL query as well. But your table is not gonna drop again, right? So whatever data you had previously, that will be retained, right? We have specified show SQL and format SQL because we want to see the generated SQL query in the console in the formatted fashion, right? So that's all about this configuration file. Now already we have discussed about the entity class, and here is the client program which we had written in our earlier video tutorial, and there we have seen example of persist and save. And here I have given the proper explanation what's the difference between persist and save, right? So here So here this is the basically explanation about the persist, but here we'll have to specify description about the save method. So this method is used to save an entity or object into database and return generated primary key. It will throw an exception if an entity already exists in the database with this primary key. So that's all about this description. Save and persist. This method is used to save an entity or object into database and return a void. This does not return any value. It will throw an exception if an entity already exists with the same identifier. So that's all about this persist. Now what I'll run these all methods at a time. So persist I'm going to open as well, and here we have a private method. So let's create a 3 entity. So I would say employee 1, 2 and 3. Sorry, let's say this is 3. Make some like Frank, Bingo, Frank, and let's say salary is 30,000. Now let's modification over here also, like Sean Wingle, Sean, and let's say salary is 60,000, right? So we have a 3 entity class, right? It has 3 entity object. So here I'm gonna call was like get employee 1, right? And we are trying to save it. Now next we are going to call employee 2, and this will save, but this will return you the primary key as well. And third we are going to look into this video, save or update. So that's new in this video. So session dot I would say save or update. So here you can see return type of this method is void. This doesn't return any value, and here I'm going to pass get employee 3. So basically what does save or update? So this method is used to either save or update an entity in the database. That depends on the primary key, right? So if a record already exists with the primary key, whatever primary key you are setting in this over here already that record is existing, then that will be updated. If whatever primary key is held by this object, right, that doesn't exist in the database side, then we were talking about here, if this object holds the primary key which already exists on the database side, then that will be updated. If that doesn't exist, then a new record will be created. So basically this does the job for the save or update both. So that's the new about save or update. That's what they have given, that save or update. So if this entity class exists on the database side, then that will be updated. Not exist, then created. Right. That's all about this. Now let's run this application, and we are expecting at this time 3 record to be inserted on the database side. So if I run it, so here you can see. So okay, so Hibernate 5 has made some changes. So if you specify the HBM2 DDL value as update in Hibernate 4, then that is not going to show you DDL query. But Hibernate 5 has made some modification. Even though you specify the update HBM2 DDL value update, still you will be able to see the DDL query, right? So create table query we have seen, but at this time Hibernate did not try to drop the existing table, right? So if you specify the create, then that will drop the existing table, right? If this table exists already, then that will be dropped. So based on the specified metadata, table is created. Now table is altered Basically now Hibernate has dropped the index, right, and that is trying to apply a unique constant on the email column. Now database table is created. Now Hibernate has triggered three insert query, because we are using first persist. First we had used persist, right, then save, and then finally save or update, and that's the reason Hibernate is throwing triggering three SQL query. If I go and refresh, and you can see there are three record has been inserted over here, right? So basically in this video we wanted to discuss about the save or update. So sometimes suppose if you read data from the database, and or suppose if you basically here we are using the primary key generation algorithm, right, which is provided by the JPA, right? But sometimes suppose this primary key basically you create a class, you have created a own class which is responsible to generate the primary key, or primary key you are setting yourself, right, and you don't know whether an entity exists with the same primary key on the database side or not, you are not aware, then in that case save or update is very handy. You don't need to think about the suppose our primary key already exists, entity object already exists on the database side with the some primary key, and if you try to save or persist again, then this will throw you an error. But if you are not aware, then why do you take a risk? Why not you apply save or update? If you are not sure whether an entity exists on the database side with the particular primary key, then you may use save or update in that case, right? So that's all use cases we have seen, right, in save, persist, and save or update. So that's all I wanted to cover in this video tutorial, guys. So this code I am going to put on the GitHub, and GitHub location will get in the video description. So thanks for watching this video, and see you next video tutorial.